Have you thought about life after sports? Have you thought about the transition from being an athlete to just being a professional in the world? Have you even thought about the priorities of your identities? What happens when your athletic identity transitions and now you are more vulnerable and exposed as being a Black female in the professional world? The journey of becoming a collegiate athlete is an experience that must be celebrated. Many students, and student athletes in particular, that conclude high school don't often make it to this chapter in their life. So as you're going through this process, it's important that you take time to understand where you are currently as an athlete, but also where you will be after you make it to graduation. The experience of becoming an athlete means that you have shaped and formed what's known as an athletic identity. That means it is your perception of how you view yourself amongst your peers, your teammates, and even your classmates, but also it reflects how the world views you. And most likely you've dedicated daily activities, how you eat, what you watch, what you read, how you interact, even how you dress, all shape and support your athletic identity. However, as a Black female athlete, as you are transitioning out the concept of race, the concept of being a female, as well as being educated, are all identities that you now have to explore, because as you transition out of sports, the protection of the jersey will no longer be there. As you transition out of the sport and you really understand that the athletic identity is beginning to fade, you recognize that, wow, I'm a Black, educated female. It's something that you've always known, but how much have you really dedicated to understanding who you are outside of the athletic environment? Not much, but it's nothing wrong with that. There are actually studies that show that this is a common barrier for many athletes, but in this situation, for Black female collegiate athletes. When we look at the different identities, starting with race, you have to begin to process that what your next phase in life can potentially be impacted by how the external world views you. So when you're looking at different professions, as far as careers, or just your journey in life, you have to understand that you're no longer in this elite community of an athlete where people are supporting your skills and your talent and your contributions to a team. But now they're seeing you as a person more of the common population. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful, but this could be a situation that you have not encountered, or maybe it's a moment that has been replicated throughout your life, and you will continue to see that. But it's important that you understand that your profession, your choice, your environment could potentially be faced with racial inequalities. But preparation and understanding will be the best way that you can overcome, succeed, and maintain your success. When looking at the female identity, so your gender identity, that is a huge component as well, because you are Black, you're educated, you're a former athlete, and you're a female. And this is kind of the concept of what we call intersectionality. Kimberly Crenshaw says that intersectionality are structures and identities that collide in the middle based on systematic structures in the world. So what we know is that having the layers of being Black, of being a female, of being educated can make the challenges quite intense for some of us. But just simply being aware makes it a lot easier and lets you know that you can do it. As you prepare for this next chapter, because it really is a next chapter, this is a moment that is opening new doors for you and something that's very, very exciting. And all the identities that we've discussed previously in regards to race, gender, education, it's important that you strengthen those identities, that you feel that you have ownership of who you are and your place in the world. Because often what will happen is that many of the different situations that you encountered while being on the court, being in the classroom, amongst your peers, will most likely be duplicated in the real world. And when I say the real world, I'm saying that's out of protection of coaches, from professors, from being associated with an institution of your university or college. Now you are on your own. So in a sense, you are now more vulnerable and more exposed. So that's why it is essential to understand who you are and what you stand for in your place in the world. So as you're going through the process of interviews, of managing staff, you have to determine how you will prioritize who you are. Because often we do that naturally, but if you tend to prepare yourself, it can be a little easier. So do you identify as a Black female, or do you identify as a female that is Black? And that goes back to your journey as an athlete. Take some time to reflect on your team environment, your institution environment, and what are you? Are you a minority that is maybe 1, 2, or 3 on a team that is majority non-minority? Or are you within an institution where maybe your team is minority, but the student population is not? So where do you stand? How do you survive? How do you adapt? How do you deal with microaggressions and different things that can cause you to feel a little uncomfortable or angry? How have you made it and managed through that? Because the same skills that have brought you success to complete your 4 years of eligibility and to graduation will be the same skills that you will use in a professional setting. Your ability to be disciplined, your ability to have critical thinking, to understand what your priority is, to keep in mind what your goals are all essential. Think about it. As an athlete, you have been able to go to practice consistently, to be on time, to take care of your body. So why couldn't you do it after? So never forget that all the skills that shaped and formed your commitment to giving to sports is the same skills and process, but most importantly, the mindset that you will execute after graduation. So just remember, just because the jersey is not there doesn't mean that you still can't win. Doesn't mean that you still don't prepare and go for that championship. This time it's just a little different. It may not be an actual trophy. Maybe it's a promotion. Maybe it's the job that you've always dreamed of. But you have dedicated your journey to this. So now is the time. You can do it.